The New Testament is the most vital and most important document for Christianity, and a somewhat common claim you'll hear is that the New Testament is corrupted and cannot historically be trusted. But what do the manuscripts of the New Testament actually display? And what do textual scholars say on this issue? Now, today I will be defending the view that the overall message of the Bible has been preserved, which is also called biblical inerrancy. I will not be defending biblical infallibility, as extreme forms of this view are illogical. The scribes who copied the New Testament clearly made mistakes, but not necessarily as a fault of their own because they're simply human. We don't have the original New Testament, but what we do have are manuscripts of it. New Testament textual critic Daniel Wallace states, "In Greek alone, there are more than 5,600 manuscripts today. It is not just the Greek manuscripts that count either. Early on, the New Testament was translated into a variety of languages: Latin, Coptic, Syriac, Georgian, Gothic, Ethiopic, Armenian. There are more than 10,000 Latin manuscripts alone." It's also important to note that even if we completely destroyed or lost every single manuscript of the New Testament, we could still reproduce it by using the writings and quotations of the Church Fathers, who quote from the New Testament over 1,000,000 times. The earliest New Testament manuscript is that of P or Papyrus 52, which is a fragment from the Gospel of John. Now, the Gospel of John was written in around 90 AD, while this manuscript dates to around 125 AD. So we have a manuscript written around 35 years after the original Gospel. With regard to the rest of the New Testament, we have 12 manuscripts, including P52, in the 2nd century, 64 manuscripts in the 3rd century, and 48 manuscripts in the 4th century. Within these manuscripts, throughout these 3 centuries, we can reconstruct the New Testament multiple times, and this isn't even counting Church Father quotations. What I didn't mention is that we have 0 manuscripts from the 1st century. And this is where many people claim that corruption is possible in the New Testament, or even where corruption has occurred. Now, there's multiple issues with this line of reasoning. Firstly, the majority of the New Testament was written in the late 1st century, and so it makes sense that copies and manuscripts are seen more so in the 2nd century, since the original documents would have been used up and needed to be recopied at this point. Second, no other ancient document compares anywhere close to the dating of the New Testament manuscripts, and even the amount we have. Take for example the Roman historian Tacitus in his Annals of the History of the Early Roman Emperors, which was published around 117 AD. We have only one manuscript of books 1 to 6 of the Annals, and it dates to around the 10th century. The New Testament manuscript tradition is like nothing seen in ancient history, and if one is to doubt the New Testament manuscript tradition and posit that it's unreliable, they would also in turn be throwing out almost all of ancient history. I state this as almost every other document in ancient history follows a similar manuscript tradition to that of Tacitus's Annals. Another common argument made is that there are roughly over 300,000 to 400,000 textual variants in the manuscripts of the New Testament, which is more words than there are in the New Testament, which is 140,000. But the reasoning for the amount of variants is that we simply have so many manuscripts, as demonstrated earlier. 99% of these variants in the thousands of manuscripts we have to do mainly with grammatical errors, and don't really have any effect on the reconstruction of the New Testament. With regard to these different variants in the manuscripts, textual critic Bart Ehrman states, the essential Christian beliefs are not affected by textual variants in the manuscript tradition of the New Testament. After going through this analysis of the New Testament manuscripts, it is evident that the scribes who copied the New Testament carried over a reliable and accurate manuscript tradition. The manuscript tradition far exceeds anything seen in the ancient world, and it's illogical to state that the New Testament has been corrupted. Thanks for watching. If you want to see similar content, please consider liking and subscribing. And as always, God bless.